Back in 1969, the Lincoln penny was nothing new. Americans tossed them into vending machines, left them buried in couch cushions, and never gave them a second thought. But somewhere inside the U.S. Mint, a stunning mistake was made. A mistake so rare that decades later collectors would fight tooth and nail for a single example of it. This wasn't just another old coin. This was a hidden treasure disguised as pocket change. The 1969 Lincoln penny without a mint mark, the coin that would send shockwaves through the entire world of coin collecting. What makes this ordinary-looking coin worth up to $1.1 million? The truth is stranger than fiction. In 1969, the mint produced billions of Lincoln cents. Most were struck perfectly, carrying the familiar design we've all seen a million times: Lincoln's profile on the front, the Lincoln Memorial on the back. But a tiny number slipped through with a bizarre and dramatic error. Instead of the expected markings, these coins carried unusual doubling on the front design. Lincoln's portrait, the words, "In God We Trust," and even "Liberty," looked strangely doubled, almost like a ghostly shadow hovering over the letters. To the untrained eye, it might just look like a smudge or a blur. But to coin experts, this doubling meant one thing: a rare minting error so valuable that it transformed a single penny into $1 million miracle. At first, no one believed it. In fact, when the first 1969 double-die pennies were discovered, even the Secret Service got involved. They thought the coins were counterfeit. That's how unusual and mysterious this error looked. Imagine that, a tiny penny in someone's pocket causing a federal investigation. But the tests proved something shocking. These coins were real. They were genuine mistakes, minted by accident, and released into circulation for ordinary Americans to find in their pocket change. Suddenly, what looked like a regular penny became one of the most valuable pieces of modern U.S. currency in existence. Collectors were stunned. Dealers couldn't believe their eyes. And word spread like wildfire through the coin community. One by one, these pennies surfaced, each time shaking the market. Every discovery felt like uncovering buried treasure. Every auction sent prices skyrocketing higher. One lucky finder took his coin to auction, and when the gavel fell, it had sold for over $1 million. Just imagine that moment. A penny pulled from circulation, something most people wouldn't even bother to bend down and pick up off the ground, turning into a life-changing fortune. But here's the part most people miss. These coins don't scream their value. They hide in plain sight. Thousands of people have probably handled one without realizing it. That's why collectors say the 1969 penny is one of the most dangerous coins to ignore, and what happened next stunned the entire coin world. More examples kept appearing, each one fetching staggering prices. Every collector dreamed of being the next person to stumble upon one. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on these coins, because the demand only grew with each shocking sale. How can you tell if you've got one of these miracle pennies hiding in your collection? The secret lies in the front of the coin. Look closely at the words, "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." If you see strong, clear doubling, not just a blur, not just wear, but actual doubled letters, you could be staring at a fortune. The date, 1969, will also show this same dramatic doubling. And here's the kicker: there should be no mint mark under the date. If there's a little S or D, it's not the rare one. But if it's clean, no mint mark at all, you just might be holding one of the most valuable pennies in American history. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And it could happen to you. These coins are still out there, waiting to be discovered in old jars, forgotten collections, or tucked away in family keepsakes. So the next time you see a 1969 penny, don't just toss it aside. Study it. Inspect it. Because one of the rarest treasures in U.S. history might be sitting right there in your hand. But one day, a single collector realized what he had found, and that small copper penny, stamped in 1981 with a D mint mark, turned into a story worth up to $1.2 million. Imagine holding a coin that millions of people have touched, spent, or ignored, yet yours is the one that carries a secret so rare, it could change your life overnight. That's exactly the case with the 1981 Denver minted Lincoln penny. A coin so ordinary in appearance, Yet so extraordinary in value, it has stunned experts, shaken up auctions, and sparked a gold rush in the world of pennies. But what makes it so special? Why would a penny that cost the government less than a cent to make suddenly be worth more than a mansion? The answer lies in the shadows of the U.S. Mint's history. In a year when America stood on the brink of change, 1981 was the last full year the U.S. Mint struck pennies with mostly copper. Each coin weighed about 3.11 grams and carried a reddish shine fresh from the press. But beneath the surface of this normal-looking coin, something unusual was happening. A mix of minting errors, rare die varieties, and experimental changes meant a few slipped through the cracks that weren't like the rest. And those few coins are now the treasures collectors whisper about, the ones that make headlines when they surface. Collectors were shocked when the first one appeared at auction. Dealers couldn't believe the hammer price. What should have been a penny you toss into a jar ended up commanding hundreds of thousands, eventually climbing into million-dollar territory. The room went silent when the auctioneer's gavel fell. A single penny had just changed someone's entire future, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Once the story spread, everyday people started checking their change. Families dug through old coffee cans, basements, and drawers. Some searched in vain, while others made discoveries that left them speechless. One man's forgotten stash of pennies, saved decades earlier, contained a fortune hiding in plain sight. Here's the detail most people miss. The 1981 D penny is valuable in certain rare forms, coins with off-center strikes, double dies that create ghost-like images on the date or lettering, and flawless examples preserved in near-perfect condition. Collectors fight for those pristine MS-67 or higher grades. They're nearly impossible to find, but when you do, the bidding wars are legendary. And then there's the transition mystery. In 1982, the Mint switched to a copper-plated zinc composition, but some test strikes and misstrikes around that time turned 1981 and 1982 pennies into a minefield of hidden value. A single slip in composition, a tiny difference in weight, and suddenly that coin isn't just copper, it's gold to collectors. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on them. Auction houses are ready to spotlight them. And every year, a new record seems to break, proving these coins are not just valuable, they're unstoppable. You're sitting at your kitchen table, casually sorting through change, when you notice a 1981 D penny. It looks ordinary at first, but something about the shine, the strike, or the feel in your hand makes you look twice. You weigh it, you examine the details under a magnifying glass, and your heart starts pounding. Could this be one of them? The kind that collectors pay up to $1.2 million for? The thrill is in the possibility. The chance that what you've overlooked 100 times before might actually be your golden ticket. And it's not just luck, it's knowledge. Because now you know what to look for. You know the signs. And you know the reward that waits if you're the one who uncovers it. But here's the twist most people don't realize. Not every rare penny screams its value. Some of them look like any other coin, until an expert inspects it closely. That's why so many valuable pieces have sat for years in jars, piggy banks, and dusty boxes, waiting for the right pair of eyes. Could yours be next? Collectors have stories of finding these coins in the unlikeliest places. An estate sale box of loose change. A forgotten bankroll from decades past. Even spare change from a gas station. The miracle is that they're still out there, hiding, waiting to be claimed. Start simple. Look for the 1981 D Mint mark on the front of the penny, just under the date. Examine carefully for doubling, on the letters Liberty, on the motto I in God We Trust, or on the date itself. Check the weight. A true copper penny from this year should weigh 3.11 grams. And if you happen to stumble across one struck on a transitional zinc planchet, that's the jackpot. That's the $1 million miracle. Don't make the mistake of thinking it could never happen to you. Every single person who's discovered one of these coins once thought the same thing. Until they didn't. Until their ordinary penny became a life-changing treasure. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. That ordinary-looking 1991 D Lincoln penny sold for an amount so shocking, it shook the entire hobby. We're talking over $1 million. Now here's the secret that nobody tells you. this wasn't just luck. There's a mysterious story behind the 1991 D penny, and if you're holding one in your hand right now, you might just be sitting on a life-changing discovery. Back in 1991, the Denver Mint was producing pennies by the hundreds of millions. It was routine, it was mechanical, it was supposed to be flawless. But somewhere, deep in the presses, something went wrong. A minting error, a tiny imperfection invisible to the untrained eye, created a handful of coins unlike any others. At the time, no one noticed. These pennies were released into circulation, spent at gas stations, slipped into change drawers, and carried around like pocket lint. But decades later, collectors began whispering. A few sharp-eyed hobbyists spotted strange details on certain 1991 D pennies. Their suspicions grew. Auction houses confirmed it. And then, one penny, one tiny copper coin, broke all expectations when it crossed the auction block for over $1.30 million. Words spread like wildfire. Dealers scrambled. Everyday people dug through jars, wallets, and old piggy banks, praying they might have overlooked a fortune hiding in plain sight. For some, it was the dream of a lifetime, one coin turning an average American into a millionaire overnight. The answer lies in the error. A rare flaw in the minting process, something as small as a doubled image, a misaligned die, or a strange surface anomaly, transformed this coin into a once-in-a-generation treasure. To most people, it looks just like every other penny from 1991. But under magnification, under careful examination, it reveals its secret. Collectors were shocked. They couldn't believe that such a modern coin, from a year that seemed so ordinary, could carry such extraordinary value. After all, 1991 wasn't 1909. It wasn't 1943. It wasn't a year most collectors would ever circle on their calendars. And yet, here it was, a humble Lincoln penny rewriting the record books. But here's where it gets even more unbelievable. The number of these rare 1991 D pennies is still unknown. That means there could be dozens, maybe hundreds, still out there, hiding in plain sight. Right now, someone might have one sitting in their junk drawer. Someone else could unknowingly spend one at a grocery store. And yes, one might be resting in your pocket right now. And this is why collectors are rushing to get their hands on every 1991 D penny they can find. Every single coin gets checked. Every scratch, every detail, every marking gets inspected. Because missing one could mean missing $1 million miracle. One man's pocket change became a 7-figure payday. One overlooked coin bought a house, a car, and a brand new life. That's the kind of story that keeps treasure hunters and collectors awake at night. Now, let's talk about how you can identify this coin. First, look for the Denver D Mint mark just below the date. That alone isn't enough. There were millions struck. What matters is the details. You need to inspect carefully for doubling, unusual striking errors, or off-center designs. Sometimes the rim will look thicker, sometimes the portrait of Lincoln will appear slightly doubled, and in the most valuable examples, the errors are so dramatic they leap out even to the naked eye. Confusing ordinary wear and tear with minting errors. Scratches, dents, and discoloration don't make a coin valuable. What you're looking for is something created at the mint itself, something rare, something unintended, something extraordinary, and that's why this story is so powerful. Because the difference between a 1-cent coin and $1 million treasure comes down to knowledge, to patience, to having the eye to spot what others ignore. So the next time you reach into your pocket and pull out a penny, don't be so quick to toss it aside. Don't dump it into a jar and forget it. Take a second look. Because history has already proven that even the most ordinary-looking coin can hold a secret capable of changing your life forever. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It could be sitting right now in someone's old coffee can of pennies, waiting to be discovered. The year was 1972. Richard Nixon was president, gas was 36 cents a gallon, and the Lincoln penny was something you barely noticed before handing it over at the corner store. But deep inside the presses of the U.S. Mint, something extraordinary happened, a mistake so subtle that almost no one noticed. A mistake that transformed an ordinary penny into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. At first glance, the 1972 no mint mark penny looks like every other coin of its time. A brown, worn cent that slips through fingers unnoticed. But what lies on its surface holds a secret. A doubling. A misprint. An error so rare, collectors today are willing to pay fortunes, up to $1.4 million, just to own one. The first whispers began in the 1970s, when sharp-eyed collectors noticed something unusual about Lincoln's face. The date, the letters, the motto, all showed strange doubling. Some thought it was just a trick of the eye. But as more coins surfaced, the truth became undeniable. A true minting error had escaped the mint, and it was hiding in everyday pocket change. Not every 1972 penny carries this doubling. Millions of them are ordinary, worth just 1 cent. The challenge is spotting the one that isn't. And this is where collectors become treasure hunters. Imagine this. A man in Ohio once dumped out a jar of pennies he had been saving for years. Most were worthless, just dirty change. But buried inside was a single 1972 double-die penny. At auction, it shocked everyone by selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Dealers were stunned. Collectors were scrambling. And the legend of the 1972 penny grew. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. As word spread, prices skyrocketed. This wasn't just a rare coin anymore. It became a symbol, proof that life-changing treasures could still be hiding in plain sight. A penny no one looked twice at could suddenly turn into a miracle worth over $1 million. Look closely at the date, 1972. If it's the double-die variety, the numbers look almost like they're printed twice. The "In God We Trust" along the top of the coin shows clear, bold doubling. Even the word Liberty jumps out with doubled letters. This is the telltale sign. But here's where most people go wrong. There are machine doubling coins that look similar but aren't worth much. Collectors call them worthless doubling, and that mistake can cost you a fortune if you sell too quickly. The real double-die error has bold, spread-out doubling that you can see with the naked eye. That difference is what separates a penny worth 1 cent from a penny worth $1.40 million. Now imagine the emotion of finding one. You're digging through change from the grocery store. You're rolling pennies with your kids. Suddenly, you notice something strange about the date. At first, you think your eyes are playing tricks. But then you grab a magnifying glass, and your heart starts racing. You realize you're holding a piece of American history, and possibly your ticket to a millionaire's lifestyle. Collectors across the country are still hunting these coins. Pawn shops want them. Auction houses fight over them. And each time one comes up for sale, it makes headlines, because the value keeps climbing higher. This isn't just a coin. It's a miracle in copper. The truth is, every time you hold a penny from the early 1970s, you could be holding a fortune. Most people will never know. They'll spend it, toss it, or let it gather dust in a jar. But the ones who know what to look for are the ones who will uncover history and wealth beyond imagination. 1972. Check the motto. In God We Trust. Look for clear, strong doubling. Compare it with pictures from trusted coin resources. And whatever you do, don't spend it. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But if you look closer, just one tiny detail turns this ordinary 1980 penny into a life-changing fortune. The story begins at the U.S. Mint, in the year 1980. Ronald Reagan was on the verge of becoming president, gas was cheap, and pennies were everywhere, jingling in pockets, filling piggy banks, dropped on sidewalks and forgotten. Nobody thought twice about them. Yet inside the mint, a small error, almost invisible, was quietly turning a handful of these coins into treasures worth millions. Most 1980 pennies were struck in Philadelphia, and here's the twist: they carried no mint mark. That's right, unlike Denver or San Francisco coins, the Philadelphia pennies were smooth beneath the date. For decades, nobody cared. But a tiny fraction of these coins, thanks to subtle variations in strike, composition, and survival in pristine condition, would one day shock the entire collecting world. One collector's story proves just how incredible this coin can be. At a small Midwest auction, a 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, looking just like the change you might find in your pocket, went under the hammer. The bids started low. Dealers smirked, expecting it to sell for a few dollars at best. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The price climbed past 10,000, past 100,000, and finally, to nearly $1.5 million. A penny that could have bought a stick of gum in 1980 had just changed someone's life forever. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to check their own stockpiles. Suddenly, the penny that everyone ignored became the most talked about coin in the hobby. Why? Because hidden among billions of ordinary 1980 pennies are a select few with flawless surfaces, razor-sharp strikes, or subtle doubling errors that make them worth a fortune. And here's the kicker, most people miss it. Imagine this. You open an old jar of coins at your parents' house. Dusty pennies spill out. They look ordinary, but one of them, just one, gleams a little brighter. The date reads 1980, but below the numbers, there's no mint mark. You shrug, thinking nothing of it. Yet that exact penny could be the difference between spare change and $1 million miracle. Experts point to two key details. First, condition is everything. A 1980 penny pulled fresh from circulation, with scratches and wear, is just 1 cent. But in pristine condition, untouched, uncirculated, and shining as if it were minted yesterday, its value skyrockets. Second, errors. Some of these 1980 no-mint mark pennies show dramatic doubling on the date, or lettering. Others were struck slightly off-center. These mistakes, born in the chaos of the mint's machinery, are what transform a penny into a jackpot. The people who found them weren't experts. One man discovered his $1 million penny in loose change from a grocery store. Another stumbled across one in a forgotten roll of pennies saved from the bank decades ago. Ordinary Americans living ordinary lives, until a single coin rewrote their destiny. Think about that. You could be holding the exact same kind of penny in your hand right now. It could be hiding in your car's cup holder, in the cushions of your couch, or tucked away in a coffee can in your garage. That's the thrill of collecting. Every coin has a story, and sometimes, that story ends in $1 million. But let's reset for a second, because here's what you need to know to identify the real treasure. Flip that penny over. Look at the date, 1980. Then check beneath the numbers. If there's no mint mark, no little D for Denver, no S for San Francisco, you may be looking at a Philadelphia strike. From there, study the condition. Is it sharp, shiny, and free of scratches? Next, take a magnifying glass. Look for doubling in the numbers or letters, especially in God We Trust, or the date itself. If you spot even the slightest doubling, you could be staring at a coin worth hundreds of thousands, even over $1 million. And here's a warning, don't clean it. Ever. Cleaning a coin destroys its value. The difference between a coin worth $10 and one worth $1 million can be as simple as a tiny scratch from someone's attempt to shine it up. Leave it as it is, and get it graded by a professional. That's how $1 million coins are verified. Now picture this. You've had a rough day. Bills piling up, the usual stress of life weighing heavy. You empty your pocket, and a penny clinks onto the counter. It's dull, brown, and easy to ignore. But tonight, instead of tossing it in a jar, you take a closer look. The date reads 1980. No mint mark. Suddenly, the possibility hits you. What if this is the one? What if this penny is your ticket to freedom, your chance to change everything? That's why coin collecting isn't just a hobby. It's a treasure hunt. Every coin is a mystery, and every discovery feels like destiny. And the 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is proof that even the smallest, most ordinary object can hide extraordinary value. So the next time you see a penny from 1980, don't ignore it. Hold it to the light. Study it carefully. Because one collector's trash became another man's $1 million miracle. And this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But when one sharp-eyed collector pulled it out and looked closer, his hands began to shake. That ordinary-looking 1980 penny, with a tiny D mint mark stamped under the date, was later sold for nearly $1.5 million. Now stop for a second. Imagine that. A penny you could have dropped in a vending machine, a coin you wouldn't even bother bending down to pick up off the sidewalk, suddenly worth more than most houses in America. But here's the twist. This wasn't some coin designed to be special. This wasn't a rare commemorative or gold-plated proof. This was just a regular Lincoln penny, until a hidden flaw at the Denver Mint in 1980 turned it into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. What happened inside the mint that year is still the subject of heated debates among collectors. Some say it was a simple die error, a tiny slip in the steel that pressed Lincoln's face onto copper. Others whisper about an experimental strike, a small batch of coins that were never meant to leave the mint at all. Whatever the truth is, that one error created a coin that would go on to change lives. But here's where it gets even more dramatic. For years, this penny sat unnoticed in circulation. It passed from cashier to customer, rattled in coffee cans, and got scooped into change drawers. Nobody thought twice about it. Nobody cared. Until one day, someone finally looked closely. And what they saw left them speechless. Because the D mint mark on this coin didn't look right. It was punched at a slightly different angle, and the spacing was unlike any other Denver penny from that year. To the untrained eye, it was nothing. But to collectors, it was the smoking gun. That little detail is exactly why this penny is now worth over $1 million. And here's the part that stunned the entire coin world. When this penny finally surfaced at auction, experts lined up just to get a glimpse of it. Dealers whispered in disbelief. Bidders fought over it with numbers so high, you'd think they were buying a rare diamond. When the hammer finally dropped, the room fell silent. The price? Over $1.6 million. For a single penny. Think about that. A coin you might have tossed into a tip jar ended up being someone's golden ticket to wealth. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And if it happened to him, it could happen to you. But here's the question you're probably asking. How can you tell if you've got one of these 1980 D treasures hiding in your collection? First, check the date. It has to be 1980. Then, look right below the date for the small D mint mark. That tells you it came from the Denver Mint. Now here's the key. The mint mark should look off. Not bold and crisp like most, but slightly misplaced, slightly tilted, or showing signs of a doubled strike. This subtle error is what makes collectors go wild. And don't forget the condition. Even a rare coin loses value if it's worn down. The $1 million penny? It was in stunning, almost untouched condition, as if time itself had preserved it for that exact moment. But the biggest mistake most people make is simple. They never bother looking. Every day, coins like this pass unnoticed because people assume pennies are worthless. They throw them into jars, ignore them at the register, or leave them in parking lots. But the truth is, the next $1 million discovery could be in your pocket right now. So here's your challenge. The next time you get change back, don't just shove it into your wallet. Stop. Look. Study every penny, especially the ones from 1980 with that little D mint mark. Because hidden among the ordinary could be the extraordinary. Collectors were shocked when this coin surfaced. Dealers are still talking about it. And everyday people like you and me are starting to realize that treasure isn't buried in the ground. Sometimes, it jingles quietly in your pocket. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Just another copper coin, tossed into a pocket, rattling in a jar, forgotten for decades. But one ordinary 1994 Lincoln cent, with no mint mark, ended up shocking the entire coin world when it sold for over $1 million. Yes, a single penny. And if you think that sounds impossible, wait until you hear the story. It all begins in 1994. Billboards were plastered with movie ads for Forrest Gump. The average gallon of gas was barely $1. And nobody, absolutely nobody, was looking twice at the change in their pockets. But somewhere in that year's production at the U.S. Mint, a tiny error, a slip in the machinery, gave birth to a rarity so valuable, it would one day be worth $1.70 million. Now here's where the mystery begins. Most 1994 pennies bear a mint mark, a small D for Denver or a tiny P for Philadelphia. But a rare batch left the presses completely bare, missing this crucial identifier. To most people, it was invisible, just another penny. But to the trained eye, that missing mark was the difference between 1 cent and a life-changing fortune. One of these elusive no-mint 1994 pennies surfaced in an auction house. The bidding began cautiously, whispers filling the room. Collectors leaned forward, knowing what they were seeing wasn't just copper, it was history. Numbers flew. The hammer fell. And the world gasped as that single coin sold for nearly $1.5 million. A penny. Worth more than most people's homes. And here's the craziest part. Stories began to trickle in from across the country. A man in Ohio swore he spotted one in a jar of change while cleaning out his garage. A woman in California found one at the bottom of a forgotten purse. And each time, dealers rushed to authenticate, to confirm whether it was the legendary 1994 no-mint mark penny. Some were fakes. Some were simply worn down. But the real ones? They sent shockwaves through the coin market. Collectors were shocked. Dealers couldn't believe it. And suddenly, everyone was asking the same question: could I have one? If you pull out a 1994 penny and look closely at the date, your eyes will naturally drift to the right, just under the numbers. Normally, you'd see a tiny D or P. But on this rare coin, there is nothing. Smooth, blank, as if the mint forgot its final signature. That absence, the nothingness where something should be, is what makes it priceless. But here's where things get even more dramatic. Not every no-mint penny is a winner. Counterfeits flood the market, altered coins with marks filed away, or damage that tricks the eye. Experts warn collectors: if it looks suspicious, trust your instincts. Authentication is key. Because one wrong move could mean the difference between a worthless penny and one worth $1.70 million. Imagine it, one man's pocket change becoming $1 million miracle. Dealers rushing to get their hands on it. Auction rooms erupting with disbelief. And right now, there could be one sitting quietly in a coffee can, a dresser drawer, or even in the change tray of your car. That's where the story becomes yours. You could hold in your hand not just a coin, but a golden ticket, a piece of American history that turns a humble cent into a treasure chest. So here's what you need to remember. Check every 1994 penny you come across. Look at the date. Study the area just below it. If it's smooth, clean, and missing the mint mark, you might have stumbled upon a fortune. Don't scratch it, don't clean it, and don't spend it. Protect it, and get it authenticated. Because this isn't just pocket change, it's a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And that's the incredible truth. The 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, hiding in plain sight, worth up to $1.7 million. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it could change your life forever. It was just an ordinary-looking Lincoln penny, struck in 1984 with a small D mint mark. At first glance, it looked like every other penny you've seen 1,000 times. But one hidden detail turned it into one of the most valuable pieces of pocket change in American history. Imagine this: you're digging through an old coffee can full of loose change, the kind you toss coins into after buying gas or groceries. Suddenly, you spot a 1984 penny. You almost overlook it, because, let's be honest, how often does anyone care about a penny? But then, something about it seems unusual. You flip it over, study it closer, and realize this tiny, copper coin could change your life. That exact moment has already happened to more than one collector. The story of the 1984 D Lincoln penny begins in the Denver Mint, where millions of coins were struck in a hurry. The machines never slept, spitting out penny after penny. But deep inside that factory, one die wasn't quite right. A flaw so small, most people missed it. But that flaw created an error coin so rare, it would one day make headlines. Collectors were shocked when the first of these coins appeared at auction. No one could believe such a common date, a penny from the 1980s no less, was commanding 6 figures. Then the bids climbed higher. Dealers whispered. The room grew tense. And when the hammer finally fell, the price had soared to nearly $1.8 million. A penny, something most people wouldn't bend down to pick up off the street, was now worth more than a house, more than retirement, more than most people make in a lifetime. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. As word spread, people everywhere started raiding their jars, their drawers, even their cars, desperately searching for a 1984 D penny. Pawn shops were flooded. Coin dealers couldn't keep up. And every time a new example was discovered, the frenzy grew. Because everyone wanted to know, what makes this coin so special? Here's the secret. On the 1984 D Lincoln penny, a rare minting mistake occurred. The dies that struck Lincoln's portrait were misaligned, causing doubling in his features, most famously, a doubled ear. At first glance, Lincoln's bust looks normal. But tilt the coin under the light, and suddenly, you'll see it, a ghostly second ear, etched right beside the first. That doubling detail is why this coin exploded in value. Most pennies from that year are worth only 1 cent. But with that doubling, with that tiny overlooked mistake, the value skyrockets into the millions. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin because they know what it represents: the perfect storm of rarity, demand, and mystery. And every collector dreams of being the one who pulls a $1 million penny straight from circulation. But here's where the story takes an even wilder turn. Many of these coins went unnoticed for decades. They were spent, dropped into vending machines, handed out as change at grocery stores. Some ended up in dusty jars, forgotten in dresser drawers. The possibility that one could still be sitting in a pile of coins on your desk right now is very, very real. Think about that for a moment. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. One woman's forgotten penny became the ticket to financial freedom. And yet, how many people have handled one of these coins without ever knowing its true worth? The answer might be more than you think. First, it must be a 1984 penny with a small D mint mark, standing for Denver, just below the date. Second, look carefully at Lincoln's ear. If you see a distinct doubling, a second outline, a shadow ear, that's the jackpot. But be cautious. Many pennies have scratches or wear that look like doubling but aren't. You want sharp, clear doubling on the ear and sometimes in other parts of Lincoln's profile. That's the telltale sign of the $1 million variety. And here's another tip most people miss: condition matters. The sharper the detail, the higher the grade, the bigger the payday. A well-preserved coin with that doubling can climb into life-changing territory. Even lower-grade examples can sell for thousands. But the real thrill, the heart-stopping moment, is in the discovery. The chance that a coin you've held in your hand 100 times could suddenly reveal itself to be a fortune. That's why collectors never stop searching. Because the next miracle penny might still be out there, waiting in someone's pocket. This isn't just a coin. It's a reminder that treasures still hide in plain sight. That everyday objects can hold unimaginable secrets. And that sometimes, the difference between 1 cent and $1 million is just a matter of paying attention. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, when you open that jar of old change, take a closer look. Tilt the coins under the light. Search for that 1984 D with the doubled ear. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It was a 1979 Lincoln penny with a tiny D mint mark that almost nobody paid attention to, until it changed someone's life forever. Imagine reaching into your pocket for change at a gas station, pulling out a handful of coins, and almost tossing one aside. That's exactly what happened to the man who unknowingly held one of the most valuable Lincoln cents ever struck. Collectors still whisper about it today. A 1979 D penny, a coin so ordinary, so forgettable, yet carrying a secret worth over $1.1 million. But how could such an everyday penny become one of the most sought-after treasures in modern American coin history? That's where the story gets truly unbelievable. The late 1970s were not a glamorous time for the penny. Inflation was rising, people complained about the cost of copper, and the humble Lincoln cent was more ignored than ever. The Denver Mint was churning out billions of pennies, working fast, working non-stop. And somewhere, Deep inside those presses, something went terribly wrong, and terribly right. One die, the very tool that strikes the design into blank coins, had a flaw. An imperfection that should have been caught, should have been destroyed, but instead escaped unnoticed. Every coin struck by that die carried a subtle but powerful difference. Most were melted, lost, or spent into circulation without a second thought. But one penny survived in near-perfect condition, almost glowing with its mistake, and it would one day rewrite history. Dealers were shocked when it first surfaced. At first glance, it looked like any other 1979 penny with AD under the date. But under magnification, experts saw the truth. The strike was sharp in places it shouldn't have been. The mint mark, slightly misplaced. The surface shimmered with a kind of doubling that only happens in freak accidents of minting. And in that moment, what seemed like pocket change became a once-in-a-lifetime miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. This penny, dismissed by countless hands before, crossed the auction block. Collectors from across the country flew in, desperate for a chance to own it. The bidding started modestly, a few $100s. Then thousands. Then tens of thousands. And within minutes, the room erupted as the price soared into the hundreds of thousands. By the time the gavel fell, the final price shocked even the experts. Over $1.1 million for a coin most people would have spent on a pack of gum. 1 cent turned into a fortune. Yes, more of these rare 1979 errors may still be out there. In jars, in drawers, in piggy banks, waiting to be discovered. Imagine the thrill of realizing that the penny you've ignored for decades is actually the key to $1 million payday. That's the kind of discovery that keeps coin hunters searching, day after day. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another collector admitted he once threw out hundreds of 1979 pennies without a second glance. He still calls it the most expensive mistake of his life. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin, convinced the next one could set an even higher record. The answer lies in the details. Look at the mint mark, the D under the date. On rare error examples, the mint mark looks misplaced, slightly tilted, or doubled. The lettering on Liberty and In God We Trust may show faint doubling, almost like a shadow behind the letters. And the overall strike of the coin will feel sharper, more defined, almost as if it carries a secret shine compared to normal pennies. Condition is everything. A worn-down coin might still have value, but pristine examples, the kind that survived decades without scratches, dents, or wear, are where the $1 million magic happens. That's what collectors crave. That's what drives the price into the stratosphere. Collectors were shocked when the first one sold, but experts now believe others are hidden away in private hands, just waiting to be recognized. Which means you might be holding one right now without even knowing it. Take another look at your 1979 pennies. Check for the D mint mark. Study the details carefully. Because this tiny mistake, this overlooked detail, could turn a single cent into a life-changing fortune. Yes, a single penny, the kind most people toss in a jar, or worse, throw away, has turned into a collector's miracle. And the shocking part? It came from the year 1982. What makes a penny from that year so special that it can bring over $1 million at auction? The answer lies in a strange twist of history, a small but monumental change in how America made its coins, and one tiny detail that most people overlook. The year 1982 was a turning point for the Lincoln cent. For decades, pennies had been made almost entirely of copper. But rising copper prices meant that the government was actually losing money just to make a 1-cent coin. Something had to change. And so, in 1982, the U.S. Mint made a switch. From heavy copper pennies to lighter zinc pennies coated in copper. It was a cost-saving move, but it created chaos. You see, during this transition, both copper and zinc pennies were being struck in the same year. Add in different mint marks, like the D for Denver, and you suddenly have a storm of variations. To the untrained eye, they all look the same. But to collectors, one version in particular is the Holy Grail. A version so rare that it can bring life-changing money. A collector found a 1982 penny that didn't belong. It had the D mint mark, meaning it was struck in Denver, but the metal composition was wrong. While most 1982 D pennies were zinc, this one was copper, the older, heavier version. A mistake. An accident. A miracle. Out of the billions of pennies made, only a handful slipped through like this. And they became instant treasures. Collectors were shocked. Dealers scrambled. Imagine holding a penny in your hand and realizing it wasn't worth 1 cent, not $10, not even $10,000, but well over $1 million. That's the power of the 1982 D copper small date penny. Most people don't even know what to look for. They've probably handled one of these rare pennies in their lifetime without even realizing it. Think about that for a moment. You might have had $1 million coins slip right through your fingers. But let's slow down, because this story gets even stranger. The 1982 pennies come in multiple varieties: small date, large date, copper, zinc. 8 different types in total. It's like a coin collector's puzzle, and hidden inside is the jackpot piece. The rarest of them all, the 1982 D small date copper penny. Now imagine the day it was discovered. A coin dealer weighing pennies, expecting nothing, suddenly sees the scale tip heavier than normal. His heart races. He looks closer. The date, the mint mark, the weight, it all matches the impossible. He wasn't just holding a penny. He was holding history. Bidders went wild. Numbers climbed higher and higher. Collectors held their breath. And when the hammer finally dropped, the price shocked the room, over $1 million for a single penny. But what makes this coin so desirable isn't just its rarity. It's the story it carries. A story of a transition year. A story of mistakes hiding in plain sight. A story that proves miracles don't always glitter like gold, sometimes they hide in copper. Now, let me reset your attention. Because this is the part you cannot miss. This exact penny could still be out there. Sitting in a coffee can. Buried in a jar of change. Waiting in your desk drawer right now. And most people wouldn't even know it. So how do you tell if you have the $1 million 1982 D penny? First, check the date. It must read 1982. Then look for the D mint mark, which stands for Denver. Next, the trickiest part, is it copper or zinc? Copper pennies weigh about 3.1 grams, while zinc pennies weigh only 2.5. A simple coin scale can reveal the truth. If your penny is heavy and it's a 1982 D small date, you might just be holding a fortune. Collectors everywhere are still hunting for this coin. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on one. And every new discovery shakes the coin world with excitement. Because each time, it's proof that treasures are still hiding in the most ordinary places. Think about that the next time you see a penny on the ground. Will you walk past it, or will you pick it up? Because that 1 cent could be worth over $1 million. So check your change. Weigh your pennies. And never underestimate the power of a tiny coin. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The year was 1977. America was spinning vinyl records, disco balls lit up every dance floor, and a penny still had real buying power. But inside the Denver Mint, something unexpected happened. A small mistake, hidden deep in the presses, slipped into circulation. That mistake created one of the most valuable pennies in modern U.S. history, the 1977 D Lincoln penny. Most people who spent it never looked twice. To them, it was just one more coin at the bottom of a coffee can, rattling in a car's ashtray, or shoved into the corner of a child's piggy bank. But collectors would later discover that this tiny copper coin, barely an inch across, could transform ordinary pocket change into a fortune worth millions. You see, the 1977 D penny doesn't look unusual at first glance. Lincoln's familiar profile faces right, the date, 1977, etched beside him, and the small D mint mark tucked just below. But here's the catch: not all 1977 D pennies are created equal. A rare batch carries subtle differences, imperfections so small that only the sharpest eyes notice them. Some show double strikes, others reveal unusual die errors, and a few even possess misaligned details that set them apart from the billions of ordinary coins. These are the pennies that change lives. Point one collector found his by accident, while digging through an old jar his grandfather left behind. Most of the coins inside were common pocket change, worth no more than face value. But this one penny stood out, its luster, its details, something about it seemed off. That single discovery turned into $1 million miracle. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to confirm its authenticity. And when it finally hit the auction block, the bidding war that erupted left the entire room breathless. Numbers climbed higher and higher until the gavel came down at a staggering $1.3 million. For a coin most people would overlook without a second thought, this penny doesn't just represent money, it represents possibility. It's proof that hidden treasures still exist in the most ordinary places. Imagine pulling one out of your pocket while buying a cup of coffee, or spotting one in your kid's coin collection. What would you do if that tiny copper disc could rewrite your financial future overnight? And this isn't just one lucky story. Time and time again, coins like the 1977 penny have surfaced, shocking experts and reminding collectors that the hunt is far from over. Every single Lincoln cent you touch could carry a hidden error, a subtle variation, or a forgotten misprint worth hundreds of thousands, sometimes even $1 million. Here's what to look for. First, check the mint mark. It must have the D under the year 1977. Second, study the details carefully. Look for doubling in the numbers, letters, or Lincoln's features. Third, pay attention to unusual strikes. Weak impressions, misalignments, or strange marks can turn an ordinary coin into a life-changing discovery. And most importantly, condition matters. The higher the grade, the higher the value. Don't make the mistake of tossing it aside or rushing to spend it. Too many people have lost fortunes because they didn't take the time to look closely. So tonight, when you empty your pockets or crack open that dusty old coin jar, take a moment. Because hidden among those pennies could be the 1977 Lincoln cent worth over $1.3 million. And here's the truth. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now. One small, forgotten coin that carries the power to change everything. If you enjoyed this story and you want to keep uncovering the secrets of coins worth money, make sure to subscribe and join me on the next hunt. Because the next $1 million penny might just be waiting for you. Yes, you heard that right. A simple Lincoln cent, minted in 1990 with a tiny D mark, the kind of coin you might pass off as worthless pocket change, is today valued at up to $1.4 million. And the story of how it happened will leave you speechless. Back in 1990, the U.S. Mint struck billions of pennies. The Denver Mint alone produced an ocean of them, flooding registers, pockets, and piggy banks across America. At first glance, there was nothing remarkable about these coins. A copper-plated zinc cent, Lincoln's familiar face on the front, the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Everyday money, easily ignored. But hidden among those billions, a tiny handful carried a secret. A minting error so rare, so subtle, that almost no one noticed, until it was far too late. Collectors say it all started when one of these pennies appeared at auction. Dealers laughed at first. Who would pay attention to a common 1990 cent? But then experts spotted something different. The coin's strike, the sharpness of its features, and a flaw that could only happen when the mint's machinery slipped in a way no one expected. This was no ordinary cent. This was a once-in-a-lifetime survivor, and when the hammer dropped at that auction, jaws hit the floor. That single penny went for nearly $1 million. Word spread like wildfire. Collectors began combing through jars, checking every 1990 they could get their hands on. Some scoured flea markets, others cracked open long-forgotten rolls from banks. Dealers whispered that these error coins were out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. And suddenly, a penny no one cared about became the most hunted coin in America. The reason behind its value is fascinating. In rare cases, the dies used to strike these 1990 Denver pennies were misaligned or mismatched, creating subtle but shocking anomalies. Some had doubled features on Lincoln's portrait, others showed distortions in the date or mint mark. A few were struck on the wrong metal planchets altogether, an accident so rare that experts consider each one a miracle. And those miracles now carry price tags in the millions. Imagine it. One man reportedly pulled his coin from loose change at a gas station. He almost spent it on a cup of coffee. Instead, after a second glance, he held onto it, researched its odd features, and later discovered he was sitting on a treasure worth over $1 million. His pocket change became his miracle. Most people miss it. They see a 1990 penny with a D mint mark and toss it aside, never realizing they might be holding a life-changing fortune. Start with the mint mark. On genuine $1 million varieties, the D often shows signs of doubling or distortion under magnification. Check the date too. Look for extra thickness in the numbers, particularly the 9 and 0. Then examine the coin's surface. Some rare 1990 D pennies were struck on planchets meant for dimes or foreign coins, giving them a lighter weight and a completely different ring when dropped. And if your coin shows razor-sharp detail, a flawless surface, and those strange minting quirks, you might have found the real deal. Collectors were shocked when grading companies authenticated these rarities. Dealers rushed to get their hands on them. Prices skyrocketed. What once sat ignored in penny jars is now the centerpiece of elite collections worth millions. Coins like this aren't just historical oddities, they're golden tickets. They prove that even the most ordinary objects can hold extraordinary value, if you know what to look for. So take another look at your change. That plain 1990 D penny in your drawer, the one you almost spent without thinking, could be hiding a secret worth up to $1.4 million. And if you enjoyed uncovering this coin story, make sure you subscribe, because the next penny I show you might just change your life. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It's worth more than $1 million. A 1980 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, the kind of coin that most people ignore, toss in a drawer, or leave buried in a change jar. But hidden within this ordinary-looking cent lies one of the most jaw-dropping stories in American coin collecting history. Picture this. It's 1980. Ronald Reagan is campaigning for president, gasoline is barely $1 a gallon, and millions of pennies are rolling off the presses of the U.S. Mint. Most of them? Totally ordinary. But a tiny handful slipped through with a mysterious flaw. A mistake so subtle, so quiet, that almost nobody noticed. These coins had no mint mark. No P for Philadelphia. No D for Denver. Nothing at all. Just the face of Abraham Lincoln staring back, as if keeping the secret all to himself. For years, people spent them without a second thought. They jingled in pockets, slid across counters, and vanished into cash registers. To most, it was just a penny. But collectors saw something different. They knew this was not supposed to happen. They knew that one small omission could transform a coin into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And that's exactly what happened. One day, a sharp-eyed collector stumbled across one of these 1980 no-mint mark pennies. At first glance, it looked like pocket change. But then he looked closer. No mint mark. Perfect condition. His heart raced. Could this really be one of the lost pennies? He had it authenticated. The results came back genuine. His penny wasn't worth 1 cent. It wasn't worth $1. It was worth nearly $1.5 million. But here's where the story takes a shocking turn. When word of the discovery spread, the coin world went into a frenzy. Collectors were stunned. Dealers rushed to get their hands on any example they could find. Auction houses began whispering about private sales and sealed bids. The demand was explosive. And then, another coin surfaced. This time at an estate sale, tucked away in a small envelope marked simply, "Old change." The family nearly gave it away, until one bidder spotted the missing mint mark. That single moment turned an everyday inheritance into $1 million miracle, and yet most people still have no idea. That's the wildest part of this story. Right now, you could be sitting on the exact same coin without realizing it. Somewhere in your house, a jar, a drawer, a box in the attic, there could be a penny that looks completely ordinary but is secretly worth a fortune. Why? Because of one tiny detail most people miss. The mint mark. On 1980 Lincoln cents, coins minted in Denver carry a small D. Coins struck in San Francisco have an S. And those from Philadelphia? For that year, they should have shown a P. But a handful slipped through with nothing. No letter at all. And those are the coins that changed everything. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At a live auction, one of these pennies, flawless in condition, drew a bidding war that no one saw coming. Prices soared higher and higher until the final hammer came down, nearly $1.5 million for a single cent. The room erupted. Collectors gasped. Reporters scribbled furiously. A penny, the lowest denomination in American currency, had just shattered expectations. Think about that for a second. 1 cent, something you'd ignore on the sidewalk. Something you'd hand to a cashier without a thought. 1 cent that became a millionaire maker. And here's the kicker. Experts believe there are still more out there. Lost in circulation. Hidden in dusty jars. Sitting quietly in boxes of forgotten coins. The odds may be slim, but the possibility is real. And that possibility is why collectors everywhere are checking their pennies again, with a magnifying glass in one hand and hope in the other. It's simple. Grab your 1980 pennies. Hold them under the light. Focus right beneath the date. If you see a D, it's Denver. If you see an S, it's San Francisco. If you see a P, you've got Philadelphia. But if there's nothing at all, no letter, no mint mark, that's when your heart should skip a beat. That's the detail that turned pocket change into million-dollar history. But be careful. Not every no mint mark coin is valuable. Some are worn, damaged, or altered. The key is authenticity and condition. That's why collectors send these coins to professional grading services, where every detail is verified, every flaw inspected. A clean, sharp, uncirculated coin can be the difference between a penny worth a few dollars and a penny worth over $1 million, and that's the beauty of it. Because this isn't just about money. It's about discovery. It's about history. It's about the thrill of knowing that something as small as a forgotten penny can change your life forever. Imagine this. You open an old jar of coins. You pick up a dusty penny. At first glance, it's nothing. But then, you look closer. No mint mark. Perfect shine. And in that moment, you realize you might be holding the very same coin that collectors dream about. That's not just luck. That's destiny. So before you spend that 1980 penny, before you drop it into a vending machine or slide it across a counter, stop. Look closer. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash. Just a common penny from 1973. Worn, dull, and nearly forgotten. But when it finally surfaced, the discovery left collectors speechless. What looked like ordinary pocket change was hiding a fortune, worth up to $1.6 million. Now imagine this. You're at the grocery store, you hand over some change, and one of those pennies slips through your fingers. You never look twice. But what if that single coin, sitting in your palm for just a moment, was enough to change your life forever? The year was 1973. Gas was 39 cents a gallon, Nixon was president, and the Lincoln Memorial penny was everywhere. Billions were minted. So why would anyone believe that one of those coins could be worth more than a mansion today? The truth lies in a tiny detail, one so easy to overlook, even seasoned collectors missed it for decades. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A small group of collectors began uncovering pennies from that year with unusual characteristics. No mint mark. Odd strikes. Flaws that didn't belong. And suddenly, what had been tossed aside as ordinary copper became the focus of whispers, investigations, and bidding wars. Dealers were shocked. Auction houses began buzzing. How could a coin that everyone thought was common suddenly appear at the center of a storm? The answer was buried deep in the minting process itself. In 1973, most pennies carried a tiny mint mark to show where they were struck. Denver, San Francisco, Philadelphia. But a handful slipped through without one, no mint mark at all. That small omission, invisible to the casual eye, was enough to send prices skyrocketing. Collectors rushed to search their drawers and jars. Imagine the adrenaline of pouring out a coffee can full of old coins, scanning each date, your heart racing with every 1973 you find. Could this be the one? Could this be the penny worth $1 million? And then came the moment that sealed its place in history. At auction, one of these 1973 no-mint mark pennies crossed the block. Bidders raised their paddles. The price jumped higher and higher, until it finally closed at over $1.6 million. One man's pocket change had become a miracle. $1 million miracle. But here's the thing most people miss. It isn't just the missing mint mark that matters. Condition plays a role too. A penny with scratches, dents, or heavyware won't command the same fortune. The ones that change lives are flawless, near-perfect survivors, shiny examples that somehow escaped decades of circulation. Collectors were stunned again when experts confirmed the rarity. Out of billions struck, only a handful of these no-mint mark pennies are believed to exist in high grade. That makes them rarer than some gold coins, rarer than some silver dollars, and infinitely more desirable to the right buyer. Because right now, somewhere in America, another one of these pennies may still be hiding. In a jar. In a drawer. In your very own wallet. And that's why the search never ends. Every collector knows that dream, the one coin that transforms ordinary life into extraordinary wealth. So how do you know if you've found it? First, look at the date, 1973. Next, check the mint mark. If you see a tiny D or S under the date, it's not the $1 million variety. But if the space is clean, blank, with no letter at all, your heart should skip a beat. That's when you know it's time to look closer. Hold it under the light. Examine the strike. Does it look crisp? Is the detail sharp? And most importantly, is the surface clean, free from heavy wear? If so, you may be holding more than just a penny. You may be holding a life-changing treasure, and here's a warning. Don't rush to sell it at a pawn shop or a casual coin dealer. Many don't recognize the full value of this rarity. Instead, get it authenticated, certified, and graded by a trusted service. Because once it's confirmed, the world of serious collectors will open its doors to you. Remember this. Stories of life-changing coins aren't myths. They're real. Time and time again, a penny pulled from circulation has shocked the world, turning an ordinary person into the owner of $1 million miracle. And the 1973 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is one of the greatest examples of all. So tonight, when you dump your change out of your pocket, when you dig into that old jar in the closet, when you finally go through that coffee can your grandfather left behind, pay attention. Because the next time you look down at a penny, it might not just be worth 1 cent. It might be worth over $1.6 million, and that exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now. It's worth nearly $1.7 million. Yes, you heard that right. A single Lincoln penny from 1964, the kind you might have lying around in an old jar, could secretly be worth more than a luxury home. And what makes it even more thrilling? Most people would never notice the difference. The year was 1964. America was in the middle of cultural change. The Beatles had just landed in the United States, Martin Luther King Jr. was making history, and millions of Lincoln pennies were being struck at the U.S. Mint. To almost everyone, these coins were nothing more than small change. Pennies tossed into pockets, forgotten in drawers, spent at corner stores. But within this sea of ordinary copper cents, a few were struck with unusual details. Details so rare, so mysterious, that they transformed into once-in-a-lifetime treasures. At first, no one noticed. After all, how many people stare closely at a penny? But hidden among billions, the 1964 no-mint mark Lincoln penny stood apart. Collectors would later discover that certain examples carried minting anomalies so subtle that most people never spotted them. A slightly off strike, an unusually sharp finish, or the absence of what seemed like an ordinary detail could turn an everyday coin into one worth millions. And then came the shocking auction stories. Imagine walking into a coin dealer with a pocket full of change, only to learn one of your pennies could change your life forever. That's exactly what happened to a few lucky collectors. A 1964 Lincoln penny, no mint mark, pristine, rare beyond imagination, stunned the coin world when it sold for an astronomical price. Bidders fought, hands shaking, hearts racing, as the value climbed past $1 million. By the time the gavel dropped, history had been made. But here's where the story gets even wilder. These valuable 1964 pennies don't look dramatically different from the ones you and I grew up spending on candy or saving in piggy banks. The difference is microscopic, yet worth a fortune. One tiny detail, one minting quirk, separates an ordinary penny from a coin worth up to $1.7 million. Collectors call it the miracle of the mint, mistakes that should have never happened, but somehow slipped through, waiting decades to be discovered. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread fast. Dealers scrambled to get their hands on 1964 no-mint mark pennies, examining every example under magnification, terrified they might overlook a jackpot coin. Stories circulated of men and women who found one of these pennies in old coffee cans, forgotten jars, or passed-down family collections. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another collector said he almost spent his penny on a newspaper, until he noticed something strange about the date. That tiny hesitation changed his life forever. But let's pause here for a second. How do you, sitting at home right now, know if you have this life-changing penny? The answer lies in the details. First, check the year, 1964. Then, look closely under the date. If there's no mint mark, nothing at all, no tiny D for Denver or S for San Francisco, you're already in the right territory. But here's the secret. Not all no-mint mark pennies from 1964 are valuable. The condition matters. Sharpness of strike matters. Any unusual doubling of the letters, especially in Liberty or In God We Trust, can skyrocket its worth. Even the smallest imperfections can add hundreds of thousands in value. Most people will never notice. They'll spend it, trade it, or let it sit in dusty drawers. Meanwhile, a handful of collectors are cashing in, turning a single penny into $1 million fortune. Dealers were shocked. Auction houses were stunned. And everyday people suddenly found themselves holding the rarest kind of ticket, the kind that could unlock generational wealth. That 1964 penny sitting quietly in your coin jar might be the key to your own incredible discovery. Because here's the truth, these rare coins weren't made to be found easily. They were hidden by time, by chance, and by billions of ordinary pennies that look almost identical. That's why stories of discovery feel like pure destiny. Ordinary people, living ordinary lives, stumbling across something that rewrites their future in an instant. Collectors say it's like striking gold without ever leaving your house. Imagine being the one to realize you've been holding history in your hands all along. Imagine walking into an auction, watching your coin climb in value, the bids rising higher and higher, until you hear the words you'll never forget. Sold, for over $1 million. This is why coin collecting isn't just a hobby. It's a treasure hunt. A mystery. A chance for lightning to strike in the unlikeliest of places. And the 1964 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is one of the greatest examples of that magic. So the next time you empty your pockets, or go through that old piggy bank, remember this story. Because the penny you overlooked could be the very one collectors are chasing right now. And if you find it, well, you won't just be lucky. You'll be living proof that sometimes, the smallest things can hold the biggest surprises. Check your coins carefully. Look for that 1964 date. Look for the absence of the mint mark. Pay close attention to the tiniest details. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The year was 1993. Michael Jordan had just led the Chicago Bulls to another NBA championship. Gas was a little over $1, and most people never thought twice about pennies. They jingled around in pockets, slipped under car seats, and piled up in dusty kitchen drawers. But deep inside the presses of the U.S. Mint, something strange happened. A minting error so rare, so invisible to the average person, that it turned an everyday copper-plated cent into a life-changing fortune. Most pennies minted in 1993 were struck perfectly normal. They were plain, ordinary, and virtually worthless beyond their face value. But then came the no-mint mark error. A small detail, a missing letter, an absence so tiny most people would never notice it. Yet this was the detail that changed everything. One collector bought a roll of pennies from a bank and almost tossed them aside. But then his eye caught something unusual. There was no mint mark. At first, he thought it was nothing. Maybe just dirt. Maybe he was seeing things. But when he cleaned the coin, when he held it under the right light, his heart nearly stopped. This wasn't just any penny. This was one of the rarest modern Lincoln cents ever created, and when word spread about this mistake, collectors everywhere were stunned. Dealers scrambled to track down more examples. Stories began circulating about ordinary people finding them in change, in jars, even in old piggy banks. Some of these coins went to auction, and the bids climbed higher and higher, breaking expectations at every turn. Until finally, one 1993 no mint mark penny fetched an unbelievable price, up to $1.80 million. But here's where the story gets even stranger. Most people still don't know what to look for. They toss pennies aside, never glancing at the tiny details. And that's why so many of these million-dollar coins are still waiting to be discovered. Think about it. You might be holding the same coin right now, slipping it into a vending machine or leaving it in a tip jar, completely unaware of its value. Collectors describe the moment of discovery like lightning striking. One man said he nearly dropped his coin when he realized what he was looking at. Another admitted he thought it was fake until 3 separate dealers confirmed its authenticity. And every time one of these coins surfaces, the coin world holds its breath. Because no one knows how many are still out there, or who might stumble upon the next million-dollar miracle. The secret is in the mint mark, or rather, the lack of one. In 1993, pennies were minted in different locations across the country. Philadelphia coins typically had no mint mark, but special runs and striking errors led to coins that defied expectations. Combine that with die variations, condition, and sharpness of strike, and you have a recipe for rarity. But here's the truth. Most people don't even know to check. They see a penny from 1993 and think nothing of it. That's the mistake that could cost them a fortune. First, pick up every 1993 penny you can find. Look closely under the date. If there's no mint mark, don't dismiss it. Study the details carefully. Is the strike sharp? Is Lincoln's profile crisp? Check the condition. Uncirculated examples are worth far more. And most importantly, compare it with trusted grading guides. Collectors pay premiums for coins that show exceptional quality. A coin that looks ordinary to you could be worth a life-changing sum to a dealer or auction house. Fakes do exist. Many people try to erase mint marks to trick buyers. That's why authentication matters. Professional grading is your best friend. It can be the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1.80 million. Imagine the feeling. Pulling out an old coffee can full of coins, sifting through them lazily, and then suddenly spotting it. Your hands start to shake. Your pulse quickens. You realize that this tiny piece of copper could erase debts, buy a house, even change your family's future forever. That's what makes this story so powerful. It isn't just about coins. It's about hope. About hidden treasures waiting to be found in the most unexpected places. So, the next time you see a penny, stop. Look closer. Don't dismiss it as just another coin. Because history has proven, time and again, that the smallest details can hold the biggest surprises. The 1993 no mint mark penny is proof that fortune favors those who pay attention. Yes, a simple 2002 no mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin you may have tossed aside without a second thought, has shocked the coin collecting world by selling for as much as $1.10 million. Imagine it. A coin you've probably seen thousands of times, slipped into a vending machine or left at the bottom of a jar, is actually a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. The story of how this penny became one of the most valuable modern coins ever discovered is nothing short of unbelievable. It began quietly, like all great mysteries. In 2002, the U.S. Mint struck millions of Lincoln pennies. Most were routine, ordinary, destined to jingle around in pockets and purses until they wore down into nothing. But somewhere, in the middle of all that mass production, a mistake happened. A rare minting error, one so subtle that it went unnoticed by almost everyone, gave birth to a coin that would change someone's life forever. Collectors were stunned when the first of these rare no-mint mark pennies surfaced. At first glance, it looked normal, almost boring. Just a copper-plated zinc Lincoln cent, right? But one tiny detail set it apart. Where there should have been a small letter, a mint mark, there was nothing. A blank. An absence that made the coin extraordinary. And here's where it gets shocking. That absence, that tiny missing mark, is what transformed this coin into a $1 million marvel. But the story doesn't stop there. One man, just like you, found this very coin in his change. He almost spent it. He almost lost it forever. Instead, he decided to hold on to it, to have it checked by an expert. That decision was worth more than $1 million. Dealers rushed to get their hands on it. Bidding wars erupted. Auction houses whispered about it as if it were some secret treasure, hidden in plain sight. And when the hammer finally fell, this humble penny had shattered expectations. $1.1 million, for a coin most people would ignore. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. News spread like wildfire. Collectors everywhere began pulling out their jars, digging through their drawers, and scanning every 2002 penny they could find. The hunt was on. And with every discovery, or near miss, the legend of the 2002 no-mint mark Lincoln penny grew larger. Think about it. This isn't some ancient coin buried for centuries. This is a penny that could be in your pocket right now. A penny minted in our own lifetime, hiding in plain sight among billions of others, waiting to be uncovered by someone with sharp eyes and a little bit of luck. The answer lies in minting precision. Normally, pennies are stamped with a mint mark, a tiny letter, like D for Denver or P for Philadelphia. That mark tells us where the coin was made. But in the chaos of production, dies sometimes get mixed up, or an error sneaks through the system. In 2002, a batch of pennies escaped the mint without their identifying mark. At first, no one noticed. After all, who stares at their pennies that closely? And yet, that tiny omission is the reason collectors are willing to pay a fortune. A missing mint mark may not sound like much, but in the world of rare coins, it's everything. It's the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth over $1 million. One collector described holding the coin for the first time as surreal, like cradling lightning in his hands. Another said it felt as if history itself had bent in his favor, turning pocket change into a life-changing miracle. So how can you tell if you have one of these rare treasures? Start by checking the date. Look closely at any 2002 Lincoln penny you come across. Then, look beneath the date on the front of the coin. Normally, you should see a mint mark, either a small D or a P. But if it's completely blank, with no mark at all, you may be holding one of the most valuable modern pennies ever discovered. Of course, be careful. Not every no-mint mark coin is valuable. Many pennies made in Philadelphia naturally lack a mint mark. But the 2002 era coins have specific traits that experts can confirm: a crisp strike, the correct weight, and other subtle markers that separate them from ordinary cents. If you think you've found one, the next step is professional grading. A certified grading service can tell you if your penny is truly the $1 million rarity collectors crave. Now, take a moment and think about this. Somewhere right now, a coin just like this is sitting unnoticed at the bottom of a change jar, rattling around in someone's glove compartment, or lying forgotten in a dusty drawer. And the person who finds it, maybe you, could be looking at a payday that would change their life forever. This is why collectors are obsessed. Because unlike lottery tickets, the odds of finding a valuable penny in circulation are very real. History has proven it again and again. And the thrill of discovery is what keeps people searching. So the next time you see a 2002 penny, don't just toss it aside. Don't let it slip through your fingers. Inspect it. Study it. Because the difference between 1 cent and over $1 million could come down to one tiny missing mark. But instead, it became one of the most jaw-dropping discoveries in the entire world of American coin collecting. A simple Lincoln penny, dated 1970, with no mint mark, a coin most people would ignore without a second thought, turned out to be worth more than $1 million. Yes, you heard that right. A penny, worth up to $1.20 million. But how can something so small, so ordinary, carry such an extraordinary price tag? To understand this, we need to travel back to the year 1970. Richard Nixon was president, the Beatles had just broken up, gas was 36 cents a gallon, and in the U.S. Mint, unnoticed by nearly everyone, a mistake was made. A mistake so subtle, so easily overlooked, that it would turn pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime miracle. Imagine being the person who first stumbled upon it. Maybe they found it in loose change at the grocery store. Maybe it sat hidden in a coffee can for decades. Nobody knows exactly how the first one was discovered, but when it finally surfaced, the coin world was stunned. Collectors couldn't believe their eyes. Dealers rushed to verify it. And when it hit the auction block, the numbers went wild. It's not just the date, it's the missing mint mark. Normally, pennies struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 1970 should still carry subtle details that distinguish them from others. But something happened deep in the machinery of the mint. A tiny oversight. A forgotten imprint. That missing mint mark transformed an ordinary penny into $1 million treasure. But here's the twist. Not every 1970 no-mint mark penny is valuable. Some are just plain old pennies. So, what separates the trash from the treasure? That's the heart of the mystery. And this is where most people miss the mark. One collector once shared his story of finding a 1970 penny in a jar of old coins. He almost gave it away to a child as play money. But then, a second glance revealed something off. That tiny missing mint mark caught his attention. His curiosity paid off big, because months later, that same coin sold for nearly $1.2 million. Can you imagine that? One man's pocket change became a life-changing miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread. Collectors everywhere started checking their own pennies. Dealers were on high alert. Suddenly, a wave of excitement swept across the country. Everyone wanted to know, could they be holding the next $1 million Lincoln penny? This frenzy didn't just spark excitement, it sparked fear, too. Counterfeiters tried to create fakes. People filed pennies, polished them, altered mint marks in desperate attempts to cash in. But experts knew the truth. Only a rare handful of authentic 1970 no-mint mark pennies exist, and only a trained eye can tell them apart. That's what makes them so valuable. Their rarity is beyond belief. The detail most people overlook is right there, in plain sight. The missing mint mark, yes, but also the clarity of the strike, the condition of the coin, and the undeniable authenticity that separates a $1 million penny from a worthless one. Collectors who know what to look for are sitting on a gold mine, while everyone else is tossing their treasure back into circulation. Think about it. How many times have you emptied your pockets, tossing pennies aside without even glancing at them? How many times have you let something slip through your fingers that could have changed your life forever? That's the haunting truth about the 1970 no-mint mark penny. It hides in plain sight. Dealers whisper about it. Collectors dream of it. And the few who've held one in their hand describe the feeling as nothing short of electric. Because this isn't just a coin. It's a piece of history, a symbol of chance, and proof that the smallest details can rewrite your life. First, check the date, 1970. Then, look closely beneath the date, no mint mark. But that alone isn't enough. Condition matters. Sharp details, crisp edges, minimal wear. Coins that look like they were just struck yesterday are the ones that make headlines. The rarer the condition, the higher the value. And if your penny checks all the boxes, you could be staring at a coin worth over $1 million. This is why collectors are obsessed. This is why dealers scramble when one comes to market. Because every appearance of this coin shocks the world all over again. And here's the part that will keep you up at night. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Yes, you heard that right. A simple 1990 penny, the kind most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk, has been discovered to be worth up to $1.3 million. And the story of how it happened is as unbelievable as it is true. Imagine this. You're at the grocery store, and the cashier hands you your change. You barely glance at the coins before tossing them into your pocket. But what if, hidden among those ordinary pennies, one was the key to a fortune? That's exactly what happened to a collector who stumbled upon a 1990 Lincoln cent with the tiny D mint mark. At first glance, it looked like nothing. But when experts examined it, they realized something extraordinary had taken place during its creation at the Denver Mint. You see, the 1990 D penny has a mysterious history. Most were minted in the millions, just everyday coins destined to clink around in pockets, jars, and piggy banks. But a tiny handful carried a hidden mistake. It could be an unusual strike, a doubled feature, or even an off-metal error that slipped through unnoticed. For decades, these rare survivors blended in perfectly with their common cousins, until sharp-eyed collectors started pulling them from circulation. And when the first of these 1990 D rarities crossed the auction block, jaws dropped. Bidders battled. The price shot past thousands, then hundreds of thousands, finally reaching over $1 million. 1 penny, 1 cent, suddenly transformed into $1.3 million of pure treasure. Dealers were shocked. Collectors rushed to check their rolls and jars of change. The buzz rippled through the coin world like lightning. How could such an ordinary-looking coin hide such an extraordinary secret? But here's the twist most people miss. The difference between a 1-cent coin and $1 million fortune often comes down to details smaller than the eye can see. Maybe it's the shape of the D mint mark. Maybe it's the way Lincoln's bust was struck that year. Maybe it's a faint doubling in the lettering. Whatever the case, the 1990 D penny became one of those legendary coins, the kind that keeps collectors awake at night, wondering if they've overlooked one sitting right in their change jar. And just when everyone thought they'd seen it all, another discovery reignited the frenzy. A collector found one in near-perfect condition, untouched, gleaming, preserved as if time itself had conspired to protect it. The value? Even higher. Dealers whispered, investors leaned in, and the market went wild once more. But this isn't just about a coin. This is about possibility. Think about it. How many times have you let a penny slip through your fingers without a thought? And yet, in that pile of pocket change, there could be a key to $1 million future. Collectors say it feels like treasure hunting. Every roll of coins, every dusty jar, every handful of change could hold the miracle you've been waiting for. And the 1990 D penny proves it beyond doubt. Now here's what you need to know. If you want to identify this legendary coin, you must look closely at the mint mark. The D beneath the date is critical. Then examine the strike carefully. Any doubling, unusual metal, or perfect preservation could be the clue. Professional grading services can authenticate the coin and reveal whether you're holding a common cent or $1 million masterpiece. But here's the part that gets collectors' hearts racing. Many of these coins are still out there. Unfound. Unnoticed. Sitting quietly in drawers, jars, and old coffee cans, waiting for someone like you to spot them. So the next time you empty your pocket change, don't look away. Take a moment. Because one ordinary 1990 D penny could change your life forever. But one lucky collector discovered it was worth nearly $1.5 million. Imagine that, something most people would ignore, tossed into a jar, suddenly turning into a life-changing fortune. The year was 1989. America was on the edge of a new decade, the Berlin Wall was about to fall, and pocket change jingled in every diner, gas station, and grocery store across the country. Nobody could have guessed that among the billions of pennies circulating, one particular coin would rise above the rest, carrying a hidden flaw that would shock the coin world decades later. This wasn't just any ordinary Lincoln cent. Most 1989 pennies were made in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. And yet one penny, missing its mint mark, slipped through the cracks. That tiny missing letter, invisible to the untrained eye, became the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a treasure worth over $1 million. Dealers couldn't believe it when the coin first surfaced. How could such a small mistake, just the absence of a mint mark, create such massive value? But in the world of rare coins, rarity isn't just about age, it's about survival. And this coin, born out of an error at the US Mint, became one of the most sought-after modern pennies ever struck. Collectors were stunned. Some whispered that it might be a one-of-a-kind piece. Others believed there could be more still hiding in circulation, quietly passed from hand to hand, waiting for someone sharp enough to notice. Think about it. You might have spent one of these rare 1989 no-mint mark pennies without even realizing what you held in your palm. And here's where the story takes an unbelievable turn. At a major auction, one of these elusive coins shattered expectations, selling for close to $1.4 million. Yes, one tiny copper-colored coin, smaller than a bottle cap, became a millionaire maker overnight. This is the part most people miss. When looking at a 1989 penny, your first instinct is to glance at the date. But what you need to focus on is the space just beneath it. Normally, pennies from this era would carry a mint mark, a small D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. The Philadelphia Mint, in most years, didn't use a mint mark, but the 1989 series was riddled with production oddities. If your 1989 penny shows no mint mark where there should have been one, you may be holding something extraordinary. And here's the kicker: condition matters. A penny straight out of circulation, scratched and worn, might still carry value, but a coin in pristine, uncirculated condition, that's where fortunes are made. Collectors and dealers alike will pay astronomical sums for coins with a brilliant shine, flawless surfaces, and sharp details. That's how the $1.4 million sale happened, because someone not only found the coin, but preserved it in mint state perfection. But what happened next made headlines. Once word got out about the $1 million sale, a wave of excitement swept across the coin community. People dug through piggy banks, coin jars, and family collections, hoping lightning might strike twice. Some dealers reported lines of people showing up with handfuls of 1989 pennies, praying to uncover the next big find. The frenzy became a modern-day treasure hunt, with collectors scanning every coin under magnifying glasses, hearts pounding at the thought of striking gold from copper. And here's where the suspense grows. To this day, only a handful of these 1989 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies have ever been confirmed. The odds are against you, but not impossible. Remember, rare coins don't announce themselves. They hide in plain sight, waiting for the sharp eye, the curious hand, the determined collector who refuses to overlook what others throw away. So here's the truth you need to know. If you have a 1989 penny, don't ignore it. Hold it under good light. Look carefully beneath the date. If that mint mark is missing, if you see nothing where there should have been a D or an S, you could be looking at one of the most valuable modern pennies in existence. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And the same could happen to you. Because here's the final, unforgettable reality. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But when it resurfaced, it shocked the entire coin collecting world. A simple 1987 penny, no mint mark, no shine, nothing special at first glance, ended up being worth up to $1.5 million. Yes, you heard that right, a single penny, the kind you might pass over on the sidewalk, became $1 million miracle. But how could something so ordinary, so common, hold a secret so powerful that it could change someone's life forever? The answer lies in the tiniest of details, the kind that almost everyone overlooks. And if you're not paying attention, you could have one of these rare treasures sitting in your pocket change right now. The story begins in 1987, a year when pennies were churned out by the billions. The U.S. Mint was under pressure to keep up with demand, machines running day and night, striking coin after coin. To most people, pennies were nothing more than pocket filler, something you tossed into a jar at the end of the day. But hidden among the ordinary copper-coated zinc cents was a mistake, a rare minting error that slipped through undetected. Collectors would later whisper about it, stunned at how it went unnoticed for so long. A penny with no mint mark, struck in a way that made it stand out from the rest. At first, no one cared. But then came the auctions. Then came the discoveries. And suddenly, the 1987 no-mint mark penny transformed from everyday change into a headline-making fortune. One collector described finding his in an old coffee can filled with coins. For decades, it sat ignored, until a sharp-eyed dealer noticed the missing mark, the unusual details, and the flawless strike. What happened next stunned the coin community. The penny sold for more than anyone could have imagined, pushing its value into the range of $1.5 million. From pocket change to a life-changing payday. The truth lies in the error itself. In 1987, the Philadelphia Mint produced coins without mint marks, but certain rare strikes contained unique anomalies, cleaner details, sharper impressions, and striking errors that made them stand apart. To the untrained eye, they looked ordinary. But to experts, they were treasures. This is why collectors and dealers are scrambling to inspect every 1987 penny they come across. Thousands of people may have tossed these coins aside, thinking they were worthless. They could be sitting in jars, drawers, and old piggy banks all across America. One man even admitted he nearly spent his at a gas station before realizing what he had. Imagine handing over a coin worth over $1 million just to buy a soda. But the suspense doesn't end there. The coin market thrives on rarity and stories. Every time one of these 1987 no-mint mark pennies surfaces, it sends ripples through the community. Dealers rush to verify, collectors line up to bid, and ordinary people suddenly find themselves holding history in their hands. And each time, the price climbs higher, fueled by demand and the sheer magic of owning something so unique. 1987. Next, look carefully at the space beneath the year on the obverse, right under Lincoln's portrait. There should be no mint mark at all. Then inspect the strike quality. Sharper, crisper details often signal a valuable error. Finally, if you think you've got something, get it graded by a trusted coin service. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and one worth $1.5 million could be in the certification. Collectors were shocked when the first of these coins crossed the auction block. They didn't just sell, they exploded in value. What was once pocket change is now the kind of treasure that can pay off mortgages, fund retirements, or change a family's future. And the most unbelievable part? These coins are still out there. Every day, people are checking their change, their jars, their old coin rolls, hoping to uncover the next $1 million penny. Don't ignore the pennies. Don't assume they're worthless. Because history has proven, time and again, that the smallest details can hide the biggest treasures. The 1987 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is living proof that miracles can come in copper and zinc. Have you looked closely at yours? Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But instead, it changed someone's life forever. A plain, ordinary penny from 1965, with no mint mark, sold for a staggering $1.6 million. And the craziest part? Most people who hold this coin don't even know what they have. Imagine this. You're cleaning out an old jar of coins, the kind that's been sitting in the back of your closet for decades. Dusty, forgotten, and filled with nothing but brown copper cents. You're ready to cash them in for pocket change, but hidden among them is a single coin so rare, so valuable, that it could pay off your house, your car, and set you up for the rest of your life. That's the story of the 1965 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. At first glance, it looks like every other penny you've ever spent on a cup of coffee or dropped into a vending machine. Lincoln's familiar profile, the date. 1965. The Wheatless Memorial reverse design. Nothing about it screams fortune. But behind this ordinary surface lies one of the most extraordinary minting mysteries in U.S. coin history. The mid-1960s were chaos for the U.S. Mint. Silver was vanishing from coins. Collectors were hoarding. Shortages were everywhere. The Mint was under enormous pressure to churn out billions of coins, and in the rush, mistakes happened. And one of those mistakes turned a regular Lincoln cent into $1 million miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A collector at an estate sale in the late 1990s spotted something odd. He picked up a 1965 penny with no mint mark, and he noticed details most people would miss. The edges, the strike, the weight, something was different. After sending it to be authenticated, the truth was revealed. He was holding one of the rarest error pennies ever struck by the U.S. Mint. That single penny eventually sold for over $1.5 million at auction. Think about that for a second. A coin worth 1 cent, suddenly commanding the kind of money most of us only dream about. Collectors were shocked. Dealers scrambled. Stories spread like wildfire in the coin world. Could there be more of these out there? And here's where the suspense deepens. The 1965 no mint mark penny is tricky, because technically all pennies that year were struck without a mint mark. That's the confusing part. Every single one should look the same. So why is this one worth millions while the others are worth a cent? The secret is in the error. A very small number were struck on the wrong planchets, leftover blanks from earlier years, or misstrikes that slipped through unnoticed. They're hiding in plain sight, and only the sharpest eyes will recognize them. But this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The weight of the coin, the way the letters are struck, even faint doubling in God we trust, or liberty, can give it away. And when professional graders verify it, the value skyrockets into the millions. Now picture this: one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another collector, a retiree sorting coins during a rainy afternoon, found his 1965 penny look strange. Slightly thicker than normal, a sharper rim. He nearly dismissed it, until he remembered the stories. Months later, his penny sold for more than most people's life savings, and yet, the mystery remains unsolved. How many of these $1 million pennies are still out there? How many are sitting quietly in junk drawers, old piggy banks, or coffee cans across America? Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin, but the truth is simple: you might already own one. So how do you know if you've got the treasure instead of just another cent? First, check the year, 1965. Second, there should be no mint mark, that part's normal. The real test is the weight. If it weighs closer to 3.11 grams instead of 2.5, you could be looking at a leftover copper planchet error. And if you see any signs of doubling in the date or lettering, don't ignore it. That tiny detail could be worth over $1 million. Collectors have been fooled before. Many dismiss these pennies as ordinary, tossing them into change jars or rolling them up for the bank. But the truth is, a single mistake by the mint half a century ago turned these coins into legendary rarities. So tonight, before you go to bed, pull out that old jar of pennies. Take a closer look at every 1965. Hold it up to the light. Weigh it if you can. Because somewhere out there, in someone's loose change or forgotten coin roll, another $1 million penny is waiting to be found. It's worth nearly $2 million. And the crazy part? It's a penny. A single 1972 Lincoln cent with no mint mark that most people would have walked past on the sidewalk without a second glance. Yet for the lucky collector who uncovered its secret, that small piece of copper became a life-changing fortune. The year was 1972. Gas was 55 cents a gallon, Richard Nixon was in the White House, and the Lincoln Memorial penny was so common that people tossed them into jars without thinking twice. But deep inside the presses of the Philadelphia Mint, something unexpected happened. A mistake so tiny, so easily overlooked, that only the sharpest eyes in the world could spot it. That mistake transformed an everyday coin into one of the most valuable pennies ever struck in U.S. history. Collectors call it the double-die penny. Imagine looking at the date, the word liberty, or the phrase "In God we trust," and seeing it appear not once, but twice, etched in ghostly shadow right into the metal. It wasn't a trick of the light. It wasn't damage. It was a minting error, and it changed everything. At first, nobody noticed. These pennies slipped quietly into circulation, riding along in coffee shop change, supermarket registers, and candy machines. For years, thousands of people probably touched one without realizing they were holding $1 million secret. But then, the discovery came. A sharp-eyed collector spotted the bold doubling on Lincoln's face, and the rumors spread like wildfire. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Auction houses began receiving these rare 1972 no-mint mark cents, and bidding wars erupted. Ordinary people, teachers, truck drivers, even teenagers who had been saving pocket change, suddenly found themselves sitting on treasures worth more than their homes. One coin, pulled from circulation in nearly uncirculated condition, sold for hundreds of thousands. And in the rarest, most pristine examples, experts estimate values soaring up to $1.7 million. Think about that for a second. A coin you could have pulled from your change at the grocery store, now rivaling the price of a mansion. Dealers were shocked. Collectors were desperate to get their hands on one. And everyday Americans started searching their jars of pennies, hoping lightning might strike in their very own home. Here's the secret that makes this story so dramatic: not every 1972 penny is special. In fact, most are worth just 1 cent. The only ones that can transform into a fortune are those struck with that dramatic double die. And spotting it is easier than you think. If you know where to look. On the front of the coin, focus on the date. The numbers in 1972 should appear doubled, thick and shadowed, as if printed twice. Then check the word Liberty. The letters should have that same ghost-like doubling, crisp and unmistakable. Finally, look at In God We Trust across the top. If you see those doubled impressions, you may be holding a ticket to $1 million miracle. There are minor varieties of doubling, and only the strongest, clearest doubled dies command life-changing prices. Many collectors get fooled by machine doubling, where the design looks slightly doubled because of vibration during striking. That kind of doubling is common and nearly worthless. The real $1 million variety is bold, sharp, and unmistakable. If you're in doubt, experts recommend getting the coin professionally graded, because the difference between a few dollars and $1.7 million can come down to a single detail point. One man told the story of digging through an old coffee can his grandfather left behind. Dozens of pennies from the 60s and 70s sat untouched for decades. He nearly gave them to a child for a school project, but paused, just for a moment, to take a closer look. There it was, the doubling on the date. His heart raced. After professional grading, that penny changed his family's financial future forever. One man's pocket change had truly become $1 million miracle, and that's why coin hunters across America still search tirelessly. Dealers are rushing to examine every 1972 cent that crosses their counters. Collectors are combing through rolls from banks, yard sales, and forgotten piggy banks. Because the truth is, many of these coins are still out there, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. Take a magnifying glass, hold your 1972 no mint mark sent up to the light, and look closely at the date, Liberty, and I in God We Trust. That doubling could mean the difference between just another penny and a fortune worth over $1 million. It's worth over $1 million. Imagine reaching into your pocket for change, ready to toss a penny aside without a second thought, and discovering that little copper coin could change your life forever. That's exactly the mystery surrounding the 1991 no mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so rare, so valuable, and so overlooked that it's shocking the entire coin collecting world. The story begins in a year when no one was paying much attention to pennies. Gas was cheap, the internet was barely taking off, and people were more worried about their Walkman batteries than what was stamped on a cent. But inside the machinery of the U.S. Mint, something slipped. A mistake so small you'd barely notice it. A missing mint mark. A tiny omission that turned an ordinary penny into one of the most valuable pieces of modern American change. At first glance, it looks like any other 1991 penny, Lincoln's familiar profile on the front, the memorial on the back. But one detail separates fortune from pocket change. Most 1991 pennies carry a little D or P to mark their origin. But a few, only a handful, were struck without any mint mark at all. Just a clean, bare date. Nothing more. And that tiny absence has made collectors lose their minds. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these mysterious no mint mark pennies surfaced in an auction, and bidders couldn't believe what they were seeing. A coin that was worth just 1 cent in 1991 skyrocketed into the stratosphere. Final hammer price? Over $1 million. Yes, a penny, the very coin most of us drop on the floor and don't bother picking up, sold for a life-changing sum. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to track down their stashes of 1991 pennies. Suddenly, a year that most people ignored became a gold mine of possibilities. And yet, so many of these coins still hide in plain sight, tucked away in jars, drawers, and forgotten piggy banks. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. But here's where it gets even more unbelievable. Experts say that most people who own this coin have no idea. They've either spent it, lost it, or tossed it in with other pennies, never realizing they were holding a fortune. The difference is so subtle, so tiny, that unless you know exactly what to look for, you'd miss it in a heartbeat. And that's the beauty of this story, because this coin could be anywhere. It could be sitting in a bankroll, hidden in your childhood coin jar, or waiting at the bottom of your glove compartment right now. And here's the detail most people miss. While the no mint mark is the star, condition is everything. Collectors will pay top dollar, sometimes into the millions, for coins that are sharp, clear, and uncirculated. A faint scratch, a little wear, and the price dips. But in pristine condition, a 1991 no mint mark penny becomes the ultimate prize. The difference between a few $100s and over $1 million can be as small as a single hairline mark. Think about that for a moment. A coin worth 1 cent, transformed into a fortune by a mistake at the mint and a stroke of luck in preservation. It's the kind of story that makes collectors' hearts race. Because the odds are slim, but the payoff is massive. But wait. There's another twist. Some of these coins were discovered only years later, long after they had circulated. That means you don't need to be a museum curator or millionaire investor to find one. You just need sharp eyes, patience, and maybe a little bit of luck. Imagine being the person who cashes in a penny for $1.8 million. That's the power of numismatics, turning the ordinary into the extraordinary. And here's how to know if you've struck gold. Look at the date, 1991. Then check beneath it, right above the rim. Normally you'd see a tiny letter D for Denver, P for Philadelphia. If there's nothing there, no mint mark at all, your heart should start racing. That's the sign. That's the secret. That's the difference between pocket change and a life-changing discovery. Now, let's reset for a second. Imagine you're sorting through a jar of coins tonight. You see a dull, brown penny. You almost pass it over. But something about the date catches your eye. 1991. You lean in closer. And then you notice it, no mint mark. Your hands start shaking. Could this be it? Could this be the very coin that collectors are hunting for, the one worth up to $1.8 million? That's the magic of this story. It's not about the rich getting richer. It's about ordinary people, everyday collectors, finding treasures where no one else thinks to look. It's about turning pocket change into a dream come true. So tonight, I challenge you, go check your coins. Dig through those drawers, crack open those dusty piggy banks, and look closely. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your house right now. A coin that looks worthless to most, but is secretly $1 million miracle. And if you're lucky enough to find one, you won't just be holding a penny, you'll be holding history, fortune, and the chance of a lifetime. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.